The President drew a red line. Presidents often draw red lines in order to deter action. Usually they deter that action to our benefit and at no cost. When the President drew that red line, I'm not aware of anyone in this room who criticized it or disassociated themselves from that red line. Now Assad has crossed that red line. It is America's red line. If we do not act, Assad will use chemical weapons many times in the future. They may be decisively successful for him, and dictators for decades to come will learn from Assad's lesson that chemical weapons on civilians used on a mass scale can be effective, and that the 1925 Protocol against their use is a dead letter. In picking targets, gentlemen, you're going to be torn between the germane and the effective. Germane would be directly related to chemical weapons. But the fact is we want Assad to control, store, and keep control of his chemical weapons. And so you'll be seeking out targets somehow related to the creation, storage, control, or delivery of chemical weapons. And I think that instead you should focus on punishing and deterring Assad by hitting valuable assets that will demonstrate to him that it was a military mistake to hit Ghouta with chemical weapons. Even air or naval assets unrelated to the delivery of chemical weapons will make that lesson clear to him. We have all learned a searing lesson from over 4,000 casualties in Iraq. But we should be aware that there are 150 occasions, and Mr. Chairman, without objection, I'd like to put into the record a CRS listing and analysis of 150 occasions in the last 40 years when America has deployed its forces into dangerous or hostile situations. And in most of those, we had limited purpose, limited deployment, and the cost was so limited that we've forgotten the incident involved. And I hope very much that what you're planning is something much more along those lines than Iraq. The resolution that was sent to us on August 31 is obviously flawed. I sent Secretary Kerry amendments the next day on September 1st. Our colleagues, Mr. Van Hollen and Mr. Conley, have proposed a substitute, as has Senator Menendez. I'd like to explore with you what elements a good resolution would have, knowing that this resolution adds to the authority you already have under the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Is it acceptable for this resolution to confirm what you've already said, and that is that the resolution itself does not add in any way to the powers of the President to put boots on the ground in Syria? Is that an acceptable position? Secretary Kerry?
Absolutely.
Would a time limit of 60 days, indicating that you might have other authorities to act beyond those 60 days, you might come back to Congress, but what we're authorizing now is limited to 60 days. Would that be acceptable?
We would prefer that you have some kind of trigger in there with respect to his, if he were to come back and use chemical weapons again, that there would be a capacity to respond to that. If you just have a fixed...
Well, you could always come back to Congress, or you could have a provision every time he uses chemical weapons, you get another 60 days.
That would be acceptable.
The second, the first, or?
The second.
And finally, would you accept a provision that said that you may want to pursue regime change from with other authorities that you have, including arming the rebels under other authority that you have, but that this resolution is limited to actions designed to punish and deter the use of chemical weapons and not to change the outcome of the Civil War?
The preference of the President is to have this a narrow authorization so that nobody gets confused here and people aren't asked to vote for two different things. One thing the President wants is the capacity to enforce the international norm with respect to chemical weapons and to make our word with respect to that meaningful to the region.
Well, I know your staff will be working with Congress to draft a resolution, and the more carefully tailored it is, the more narrow it is, the more likely you are to actually succeed in the House. I hope very much, Mr. Chairman, that we're marking up a resolution in this committee and considering in regular order. And finally, for the record, if you could explain.
Well, yeah, that afterwards we can introduce the questions for the record, but we need to go now to Mr. Smith, Chairman of the Africa Subcommittee.